And we are recording. Hey, everybody. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm here. This is Tony Vega. Yes, I'm here. Jesus, it's been a minute since I've done this. But anyway, I'm not here alone. I'm here with my good friend Tim. We're here to discuss kind of like to preview the not a preview. It's kind of like a preseason review, if that makes sense. Kind of like to get some indications. Again, this is kind of like the same roster as last year, but with a completely different coaching staff, sort of a different philosophy. And since coaching isn't my forte, I decided, hey, why not bring uh, Tim from Tim MBA, Lakers Exceptionalism. What's up, Tim? How you doing today, buddy?
Hey Tony, I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Just getting through, watching the film, logging stuff, trying to find every little detail I can. We don't have a big sample size, as you said, so trying to I almost overanalyze, learn as much as I possibly can, so I can
Yeah.
learn what this new staff looks like. Like you said, the roster's the same, but how they're using players, the plays they're running, stuff like that, has some variance. So I'm just trying to learn. What's your identity? What do you want to do? And trying not to pay too much attention to the results and get worried about that while still appreciating those little things.
Yeah, and that's something that's difficult for me to conceptualize is the fact that this is an entirely different roster. Sorry, an entirely different coaching staff, and they've only played how many like preseason games? Like four or five. Like it's not entirely like it's not something that you and also it's like they only played the real roster, like the real rotation, like a half or so. Like we got people injured, we got people in and out, so it's like it's very difficult to kind of gauge what's going on specifically. But anyway, let's dive into this because I kind of I kind of have a question for you. And by the way, like I'm trying to start this season, and for those viewers who know Purple and Gold Mines, we always started with this: what's on your Purple and Gold mind? And Tim, I just wanted to ask you, what's on your Purple and Gold mind? And this is just could be anything. It can be basketball, can be any sport, anything. It can be even entertaining. But what's on your Purple and Gold mind? Like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, good question. So I think right now, just with sports in general, I'm a Mets fan, and many listeners won't be
Oh,
happy to hear that. Well, man, they might be happy to hear it. It depends on what you think of my basketball content and if you want me to lose or not. But not going well, and so trying to pay a lot of attention to that, appreciate the run that they've had, and so the Lakers have been playing at the same time for some of these games, and so I am in some ways almost removed from the emotion with the Laker games because I'm seeing them afterwards and I'm
yeah,
catching up. I'm going through film, and I am just very much in like learning mode. But on the Lakers side of things, as that baseball piece is closing out, I am excited. I'm optimistic. At the same time, skeptical. And the last time you had me over to talk, I talked about different coaching options and if the Lakers went with JJ Redick, how much uncertainty there would be. And this set of 5 games so far are the first like real data points we have to see what do they even want to do? What's the offense going to look like? What's the defense going to look like? How is the rotation going to look? So very much just trying to learn as much as possible because if you ask me, what will the team's record be? I don't know. I like there are a number of things I need to figure out before I get a feel for what to expect. And so I'm liking a lot of what I'm seeing. There are some things I'm seeing that concern me, but I think in some ways this team is, in the eye of the beholder because there is so much unknown. It's easy to project your confidence or project your, pessimism on what the year will be. And so it's very tricky. I'm just trying to decipher it all. So I'm being cautiously optimistic and doing my best to keep it like objective and evidence based and I like to report out here's what I'm seeing and I keep having to remind people like calm down, it's 3 games, it's 4 games, it's 5 games, these aren't real games, They may not be trying their hardest. They're still installing things. They've had like half a dozen practices. This will not be a final like finished product, and it's not fair to compare this to what we saw a year ago or what we might be seeing from other teams where they do have more continuity, not just with the roster but with the coaching. So I am doing my best to thread the needle of being objective and critical where it makes sense, praising them where it makes sense, while also hoping to not need to reply to every tweet I send out with, "Hey, it's still preseason."
Yeah, it's difficult, especially like it, it's kind of difficult even for like I kind of view myself as a casual. Like it's kind of difficult to kind of like detach the fact like this is the same roster as last year. So it's like what what other like continuity, like whether like there's some things like they should just know how to run and they should just be cohesive and they should just run things, but it's clear as day like they're running different stuff. Like I've seen more threes. I think I saw AD probably take more threes than I have his entire preseason career as a Laker. Like it's kind of insane the level that the 3 point shot has been relevant for this team, and it's evident. But it, going back a bit to what you were saying, your concerns. I have a particular question for you, and this has to do more about like because this is a shift from Darvin Ham to now JJ Redick. In your point of view, I don't know if you remember the preseason that we had Darvin Ham for the first time. Do you see the same type? And by the way, that was a different roster. It's kind of like that was the I think that was the Westbrook roster. But anything that pops to your mind where it's like a comparison between the two in terms of Darvin Ham and JJ? Like, what's JJ doing better than what Darvin Ham did, or is there anything that has caught your eye?
Yeah, really good question. And I think that's probably the fairest way to look at what we've seen so far is don't compare it to all of last year, but compare it to the very beginning of last year or the very beginning of Ham's first year. And what stands out to me, like absolutely, and it seems to be something that they're very aware of this year and trying to do a better job with. And to me, it was the downfall of Ham, is they're much more structured. They are running plays very consistently. They are running plays. I have the first 4 games logged, and I am like most of the way through the fourth quarter of the game from yesterday. And in those games, they have had some sort of organized offense happening 68% of their half court offensive possessions.
Oh,
And like if you look at a quarter by quarter basis, they're all in the like 50, 60, 70, 80% range. Whereas with Ham, we were living in like the 20, 30, 40% with some 50%
I
range.
remember. I
So
I remember
yeah,
your
man.
tweets with the emoji with like the poop emoji, like basically like, oh, this is great quarter. What happened this quarter? I don't know. They
Yeah,
just
dude,
forgot.
it was infuriating because they like legitimately there were some really good plays in that playbook that Ham ran, and they just like never called them or rarely called them, or they would go into a game, have 80 half court offensive possessions, run plays on 40 of them, and be like unstoppable, and then on the other 40 plays. Ham would just stand there and watch, and the guys would be out there playing pickup basketball, and it would not go well. And then you'd lose by like 2 points, and that infuriated me. And so it was something I tweeted about a bunch last year. There are other things that matter. There are other elements that I think are important in with an offensive scheme, but that was the most obvious thing that they screwed up so badly. And it is very relieving for me to see that JJ, they clearly track it internally. They clear like if the percentage of the time we're jumping all over the place, I would have a little bit more fear that they're not tracking it. But the amount of consistency in the high performance with this makes it very clear to me that like this is what they want to do. This is what they want it to look at. And while the exact plays may evolve and they'll continue to install things, it is very clear to me that they want more structure. And to me, that's really good because as long as you are using good plays that are putting the right players in the right roles to do the right things that they're good at, and you're able to manufacture good looks to help elevate everyone on the roster, that's going to result in better play than just like, hey, go figure it out basketball. Like just like in football, Pat Mahomes, he's great, running around making things happen. But most of what the Chiefs do well, most of what every team does well is within their structure. And they're saying, okay, you're in a cover 3. we're going to run a play to beat a cover three. You're in cover four, we're going to beat cover four, this way or that way. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to see the team do. Like, run sets and then run sets with purpose. So far, the design is improving game by game. The percentage of the time that they're saying, like, you're in drop, so we're going to run a drop beater, or you're switching, so we're going to run a switch beater, that's been a little lagging so far. That to me is the one thing that I still have yet to see. To me, like, that's the one part that has been bad so far. And if it continues to be bad, it's going to hurt the team. But that is the kind of thing that a brand new head coach, I don't expect them to be awesome at immediately. So maybe this is JJ's just getting his feet under him. Maybe he needs to delegate a little bit more with his staff and like make sure, like, hey, Greg St. Jean, make sure you know what coverage the defense is in at all times, because I'm up here juggling six things between talking to the refs, coaching players, managing substitutions, calling timeouts. I want to know, are they in drop? Are they switching? Whatever. And then give me the menu of, hey, here are the three things we might want to run, and then let me call the play out. Something like that could be helpful. I don't know. I'm speculating, but that's an area where there needs to be growth. But the thing that stands out the most is they're running a lot of plays. And you mentioned that the playbook's different. Having logged every play they've run compared to last year, it's like 60-70% the same stuff. It is a lot of the same plays. And the new things that they're incorporating are very JJ. They're very much the sorts of actions and concepts that we heard him talk about on his podcast with LeBron. So it makes me very confident that he's getting his input into what that looks like. But we are seeing a lot of the same stuff. We are seeing a lot of what Greg St. Jean ran in Dallas. We are seeing some of what he ran in Phoenix when he was kind of second in command offensively behind Kevin Young with them last year. And then we're seeing some of that JJ influence. But to your point, they are definitely putting up more threes. A lot of it's in transition. A lot of it is ball screens. They are, instead of like running off the screen trying to get downhill, if you were in drop, they're not going to try to get the running start and go at you. They're just trying to take the shot that's there, which is that pull up three. And so far, the results aren't great, but process wise, it is a change in direction, but one that I think makes a lot of sense. So that stands out. And then like AD taking a million threes last night was very different. I think he made
Very.
four in the first quarter, which was like tying his like career high with Ham at least. So very, very different. If he can consistently, like, if he can shoot those well, it opens up so many things, because now all of a sudden you can have him plus Vando, you can have him plus Hayes, and it doesn't really hurt you offensively because one of those two guys is a spacer. So that would be a huge development. I'm not buying it yet. We definitely need to see more for me to like be convinced about that, because anybody can have a good shooting day or a couple days, but if he can do that well, whew, this is a different team. So those are
No,
some of the things that stand out to me the most so far.
no, yeah, that's great points. I totally agree with that part. Like, if AD's shooting threes, like, this team is different. Like, that's the one part. I think, how many years it's been, like 3 or 4 years that we've been trying to make AD, like, we had a tenure where we were trying to make AD a center, and then his shot just fell, and then now it's like we're trying to recuperate what we had in 2020, which was a AD that was just the jump shooting AD, the perimeter. Like, he had more into his offensive back than just getting a 10-footer basket, or less than 10 feet. But to that point, I am concerned about something, and I don't know if you catch this, but there is a point where the identity of the Lakers, how I view them at least, they are very how can I view how can I say this? Like, they are very efficient in the paint, from my understanding. Like, between LeBron and AD, and most of this has to do, and that's why we have to say a lot of This is a lot of preseason, but it, are you concerned by any chance that they're focusing on the three too much, and not of what, like, the bread and butter that this team can have, or is it just preseason? Like,
Yeah, I think in general with everything we're talking about, we can say, hey, it's just preseason, so who knows? And we can say that whether, now we can say that 10 games, 20 games, 30 games into the year. At a certain point, like I don't know, let's take them for their word. Let's look at the film, share what it says. If they change, they change. But to me, the shot profile and the kinds of shots you're trying to get and the shots you're taking should be something that stabilizes quicker. We should be able to trust that quicker than we should trust your like 3-point percentage as a team or your defensive rating or things like that. So I am paying attention to the shot profile and I am definitely noticing that they're getting to the rim a bit less than I'd prefer. I think last year's team, there was a lot of attention on the lack of threes attempted, but it wasn't that they weren't taking a lot of threes and they were taking a bunch of mid range. It was because they were just shooting at the rim all day and shooting really well at the rim all day. They were like top two both in frequency and field goal percentage. And if you're just living at the rim, I don't have a problem with that. Like they're shooting well enough on threes to keep the defense honest, and that opened up the rim. But that was very much the focus. And when you are attacking the rim, you are going to get more offensive rebounds. You get if you look at the percentage of shots missed at each area of the court that result in an offensive rebound, shots closer to the rim get offensive rebounds more. And we saw the Lakers when they got them, it was there. Um, when you're shooting at the rim, you're going to draw free throws more, and that was something that the whole league knows about. The Lakers are a big free throw drawing team, and defensively, they did a good job keeping teams away from the paint and the rim, and so they didn't foul a bunch. That is something I expect to change with this change in focus. From an effective field goal percentage, like shooting efficiency standpoint, yeah, I think getting more threes up may help you. But if you do that and you're sacrificing like not getting to the rim, not getting free throws, not getting as many offensive rebounds, which I guess you can't really go down because last year was so bad. So that part of it, we're not going to see a drop off in. But I do have some questions. I'm open to the idea of taking more threes. I just want to make sure that they're still getting to the rim a lot. And when I look at like 4 out, 1 in has been the alignment, has been the formation the team has used most so far in preseason. It's about 3 times as frequent as 5 out. It's about 3 times as frequent as horns. And in 4 out, 1 in, only 22% of the team shots have been at the rim. And about 40% of their shots have been from mid range. That is not a good like portfolio of shooting. So they are taking more threes, but they're taking a lot of mid-range jumpers, and that tells me they can't get to the rim. They're not doing a good enough job getting to the rim, and maybe they'll shoot those middies well, but it's still not like the best way to operate. So that to me is concerning. It's something I want to continue monitoring. When you look at like how they're doing out of 5 out or how they're doing out of horns, they're shooting 30% of their shots at the rim for 5 out, 40% of their shots at the rim in horns. So those look much better than 20%, 22%. Um, I know the scheme is very early on. They're going to continue to evolve and add new stuff, but that to me is concerning. And I would say for Lakers fans, don't be surprised if we don't see the same sort of free throw disparity in the Lakers' favor as we have in previous years if this item continues. And as LeBron and AD are very rim centered players, they may, feel the brunt of some of this.
But at the same time, I kind of, in the same breath, what is the benefit of doing this? Like, if the mid range wouldn't that mean that let's just assume that their percentage is decent from in terms of like they're making their shots at a decent clip. I wouldn't say elite, or I wouldn't say like top five or any of that sort, but let's say a decent. Does that um does that actually help the Lakers in terms of keeping LeBron and AD kind of fresh? Because sometimes like banging down inside or going to the rim like that involves a lot of physicality, and sometimes like that wears down during the season. Is that something? Is there something to that, or is it just my wishful thinking? If that makes sense.
I think it's a factor. I don't know how much of a difference we're going to see with that. I know defensively, they're still going to have to box out and bang in the post and things like that. But offensively, yeah, I mean, if AD's standing at the 3-point line and he doesn't have to like hit anybody, nobody's hitting him the whole possession, he's going to save some energy. Same thing with LeBron. But what does AD, what does LeBron look like in that different kind of role? Are we still seeing them be as good as they can be? So I think that's the trade-off you have to think through. From my perspective, I think 3-point shooting, I think off-ball screening, like those flare screens and pin down stuff like that, that's good to have. When I'm looking at how I would want to utilize that with this roster, I would use it more as a like weak side secondary action that makes the help defense have another job to do. So they can't take the extra couple steps over and they can't be there at the rim. Let's say LeBron blows by his guy at the 3 point line. If there's a staggered screen or something going on the weak side, the guy who might rotate over to stop LeBron at the rim won't be there because he's got another job to do. And I think that's where I see there being synergy between the rim centered approach and the 3 point shooting. But what I'm seeing the Lakers do is a lot more frequently they're using those off ball screening actions as like the number one scoring look on plays. They're starting three, they're starting out and they're attacking out to in rather than inside to out. And I know it's not a preference of mine, and I don't want to project that and say they're not playing basketball the way I want them to play, therefore it's bad. So I'm very open to it. I'm trying to monitor it and keep myself honest. Um, but I do think it's not the best fit with this roster. I think if you had a Klay Thompson, Steph Curry roster, it would make more sense. But a LeBron AD roster, I think you want to center things around the rim and use the 3 point line for the role players and to just like pull away help defense.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hope to see that synergy. If I'm being honest, I feel like maybe it's hopeful thinking, but I I would hope, and just knowing like the sicko that JJ is, maybe he's not putting everything on the table. Maybe he's leaving something in his back pocket, and it's like, during the season we'll implement it and install it little by little. Who knows?
Oh no, that's for sure. Like I,
Yeah,
I will tell you, for everything that we've seen so far from the Lakers from a play calling standpoint, there's a lot that's very good and really impressive, and I think is like elite caliber play design. There's a chunk that is fine. There's some stuff that I don't like, and I'm hoping they move away from. But altogether, the play design itself has been improving game after game after game, and that to me is encouraging. Right? You usually start by building like, we're gonna run our double drag, or we're gonna run our wedge ball screen, or just like the simple like first step, and then a week later, a couple days later, you add the second step to the play, the third step to the play. So we're seeing them take those steps forward. We're seeing them layer actions in a way that makes it really challenging for the defense. If you are attacking with like just there's one wave of things that we have to worry about as a defense. If you get through it, you can exhale. But if the play has a second wave, a third wave, um, that keeps you in a lot of stress as a defense. And we're seeing the Lakers as we go game by game. And this is something I track. We are seeing there be more and more waves of attack on a per play basis. We're also seeing there be less and less potential help defense available on a per game basis because the Lakers are doing a good job with their alignments and their player positioning, as well as that off ball weak side action to occupy potential help defenders. This is where those exit screens and flare screens and stuff like that gives the help defense another job to do, and it pulls them away and makes it so if you get one breakdown by the defense, it's going to result in a really good shot at the rim instead of drive and then have to kick and then drive and kick, and maybe you get a good shot, maybe you don't. So we are definitely seeing improvement. I expect that we will continue to see improvement. There will be plays that we have not seen yet that the team will use. Some of them that we haven't seen yet might be some of their bread and butter that they work on. But what I would say is they've most likely installed what they expect to be their bread and butter. I would take them for their word. If they're going to run a bunch of weave plays and a lot of those wedge ball screens and a lot of horns where they feed the elbow and play off of that, they're doing that for a reason. And if they're not, and if they're just kind of like BSing and picking random plays to install, that's not a good look either. So if we're assuming they know what they're doing, and I would expect what we're seeing to continue, just expect it to be a little bit sharpened and fine-tuned over time as they add more bells and whistles to it.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And honestly, it's a I kind of view it as a positive outlook for the season. Like I feel like one of the biggest question mark was if JJ was gonna be what JJ was. Honestly, like it's just like who will JJ be in terms of as a coach? And there's a lot of shadow questions in terms of like the coaching staff, but so far as a fan, I'm pleased to what I'm seeing. The one thing that I will say that's concerning, and moving to the next subject, would be knowing that the roster is kind of not complete in terms of like Vando and Christian Wood are kind of injured right now. They're rehabbing. Hopefully, there was an update that maybe in 2 weeks or so there's a reevaluation. I'm not sure, but seems like more towards November we get Vando, maybe Christian Wood. So my question is how, and and this question is kind of loaded, but it's just, and I don't know if you saw the yesterday's game, but Dalton Connect just exploded. Like he just caught on fire. Where the last time I see a player do that, it reminded me a lot of Klay Thompson. I'm not gonna lie. Like it reminded me just basically just a shooter shooting. Like it's just the dude was on fire, a flamethrower. He's really good, but we have two players that currently I have at least in my personal rotation, kind of like above him or close to him. Are you like where are we? Are where is Vando and Christian Wood in this rotation? Like and Dalton included. Like what's the how do you view this? Like that's
Yeah, it's a good question and one that the Lakers are still trying to figure out as well. And JJ and his staff, they have not seen healthy Vando up front and up close and personal. They have not seen that from Christian Wood. If they're looking at the film from last year, they're looking at like the worst ways you can use Christian Wood. So I don't, he's gonna have to hopefully they use him correctly and he can show them what he could do. And they're looking at some of the Houston film, Detroit film and stuff. Vando, I think we have a good feel for what he brings to the table. They've talked about him as if they do as well. I expect, especially if part of this is can AD shoot threes? And if so, that unlocks more Vando time with Anthony Davis. If not, you might be sacrificing offense for better defense. And that worries me a little bit. You ideally want to have guys that are two-way players. But once they're healthy, once they're back, and I don't know when those will be, I think Wood will be competing with Jackson Hayes for backup center minutes. I have been a big proponent of utilizing the LeBron Wood AD trio front court for a bunch more size and rim protection and rebounding and allowing LeBron not to need to be like your number one rotator defensively as like a secondary rim protector, but allowing Wood to do that and AD to do that. And so give LeBron a little bit of time off on defense because he's as he's aging, the offense is still strong, but the defense and the off-ball defense specifically is where in the data and on the film I'm seeing the drop off. So if we can minimize the impact of that, to me that's meaningful. So maybe we see that trio. If not, we're probably still going to see Wood take backup Hayes minutes, backup center minutes, but we are still seeing like Hayes AD play together. So we likely will see LeBron Wood AD play. Regardless of how they feel about it. If they're willing to do it with Hayes, they'll be willing to do it with Wood. So I think he's directly competing for that time. I don't think we're going to see both him and Hayes, other than maybe like the only way they would do that is if they really want to lean into LeBron at the three with Wood and AD as the front court, in which case they might have Hayes play opposite AD, Wood take a lot of those power forward minutes along with Rui, and then LeBron play a lot more time at the three. Don't know if they're going to do that or
yeah.
not. If not, we're not going to see a whole lot of what I talked about with Hayes and Wood, but that's where they fit in. When it comes to Vando, Vando's competing with Rui. Vando is, competing with LeBron, but LeBron's getting that time. So, there's a little bit of a cap there. We'll see what this defensive package is that JJ referred to and how he fits in with what that looks like. He's been used more as a wing stopper in our defensive roles at B-ball index the past few seasons, where he's going to go take your scoring wing more than guarding bigs or guarding your like guards. What that defensive role looks like will impact what lineups they're willing to put him into. But I think he'll play when he's healthy. And that might come at the expense of Christie. It might come at the expense of Rui at Connect. So he's going to be battling with a couple of those guys for minutes. Wood as well, potentially. And then you asked about Dalton. He was a flamethrower last night. I'm looking at like how he scored his points: 8 off of handoffs, 7 out of running ball screens, only three from off ball screens, 3 on spot ups, 7 in transition, and then another 6 on like just miscellaneous plays where the ball bounced his way and he made the most of it. So all over the place, doing a lot of good stuff. he is someone that I think is ready to play. When the draft was happening, I was on playback and he was the one guy that I was like, you need to get this guy. He is ready right now. If you want, a project that might be good in 3, 4 years, here's some other guys, but this is the dude to go get, and they did it. So I'm really happy with that, and we're seeing it already. He is easily someone you can slot in offensively. Defensively, as long as the Lakers have front court injury issues, it becomes a little bit trickier because he's not like the worst defender you've ever seen, but he's not a plus on that end. He does have some ability to disrupt things with his length, but he's more of a neutral. I think is the hope defender, all things considered, and so he might get time at the 2, time at the 3. We've seen some time at the 4 with him, which I bet the team doesn't want. Um, but he's someone I could see just being on the outside of the rotation, or at least the regular rotation, if the team is using a 9-man. But if they are going to use like 9 guys and then the 10th guy is just going to get like 8 minutes a game, we might see him be that guy. So I don't know. TBD. I think these are good problems to have, and ones that how JJ wants to run the offense and the defense and what player roles they want to use will tell us a whole lot. So I'm not worried about this. I see it as like opportunity for them to have different tools in the toolkit to use in different situations, and this makes us better equipped to play different kinds of opponents offensively and defensively. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't have a good feel for what JJ wants to do exactly, and we haven't seen him run a
Yeah.
rotation before, so no
Yeah.
idea. But I'm excited to see what it ends up developing into.
No, I'm equally as excited. And good point. It is a good problem to have. And yeah, Christian Wood competing for Hayes minutes, Vando competing for Rui minutes slash maybe Dalton, and yeah, and that's the thing about this roster that concerns me a bit is, and I don't know if you agree with this, but like I kind of want to see, and I don't know if it's something that preseason you've caught on, but it seems apparent that they're trying their best to kind of stagger AR and D'Lo. I don't know if you've seen that
Mm-hmm.
or
Yep.
and I think that's something that we've all kind of wanted, which is just like the balance, like balance the roster in terms of equal defense to equal offense and keep some sort of flow, not have four forwards like we did last season or something like that. But in reality, it's like if you had to name a player that was what's the best bench player that we have currently, like just
Uh,
on paper, on,
uh,
on paper, not let's not take preseason into account, just on paper.
from like an impact standpoint, from what standpoint? From scoring, best defender,
From
best offensive player, best guy to run a lineup. Like what are you talking about?
I'm talking about in terms of like just scoring. Probably let's go scoring at this point, and just overall impact. Let's put impact, because like I feel like we focus a little bit too much on, and this is just I'm talking to myself a bit here, but it's like eh, there when I look at the roster, it's like it's very offensive leaned starting lineup, and then it's like if by any chance D'Lo has an off night, Austin's struggling, Rui's giving you something. It's like, are you leaning towards like what player can impact winning to a point where it's like you're you need the offensive punch, but you don't want the defensive lag, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah, I would say that Max Christie is a two-way player that fits into what you're talking about, where defensively, he is long, he is a good rebounder, he has done a really nice job as an on-ball defender, and there's certainly things he can improve upon, and I think he can definitely be more disruptive and a better defensive playmaker for what his frame is. But as he's grown into his body, like he belongs. He fits, he's an NBA player, and defensively, I'm not worried about him.
Yeah.
Offensively, he is someone that has been a very strong off-ball player as a 99th percentile stable efficiency spot up guy. Like just go stick him in the corner. When he gets the ball, he's catching and shooting and making those threes. Or if he needs to attack a closeout, he's been incredibly effective there as well. He's a strong cutter, And so in those areas, he does a really nice job. But if you need him to go run ISO or run a ball screen, he was very bad at that last season. And if you are looking at some of the impact metrics for him and you're like, Tim, his LeBron or his EPM or his Darko or whatever doesn't
Yeah.
look good, what I would tell you is much of his usage last season was in those garbage time lineups. And we actually have this data at B-Ball Index looking at the percentage of the time you played in garbage time. He, among the Lakers' regular rotation guys, was the highest in terms of like the percentage of his minutes that were playing with those just junk lineups. And when he was playing with those junk lineups, he had to be the man. And he's not ready for that. He can't do that. He's not at that point. Maybe he'll develop to be good at that, but right now he's not good at that. Last year he wasn't good at that. And so we saw such a big portion of his season's minutes like muddied with the Lakers asking him to do things he's bad at and him being really bad at the things he's bad at. And that really lowered his impact data and his efficiency overall. But when we look at how he performed and how the team performed when he was in like actual like NBA lineups and he was like your third or fourth or fifth scoring option, he did a much better job. His role fit him. And we've seen that translate to this year's preseason. When he's out there with Austin and D'Lo, he is almost exclusively an off-ball guy. When he's out there with one of the two of those guys, he is still almost exclusively an off-ball guy. But when he's out there with neither of them, he's out there playing like on-ball pick and roll ISO game, and that's not his bread and butter. You don't want him doing that. And so I think he's someone where as long as you keep him within himself, which means putting him into better lineups, he's going to give you good offense. He's going to give you good defense. And you mentioned splitting up Austin and D'Lo. Max to me is that guy that either as a sixth man or if you were to start him, he is a big piece of that because he has that two-way impact and he's super easy to slot in and not have to worry about like, man, he needs his touches. Like we need him to go cook. He's unhappy because he's not cooking. He wants to win. He wants to impact the game and help the team win. And he can do that with like one or two shots offensively and they're the right kinds of shots for him and then being a really good defender. And that allows you to spend more of your time with LeBron or D'Lo or Reeves or whoever on ball. So that I think Max is my answer right now.
Yeah. I would agree. Like Max, I think Max is ready. Like and what you said about his ISO and pick like his offensive bag is not like his
I'm not picking him for a one-on-one competition. I'll tell you that
exactly,
much, right?
exactly. Yeah, that's not his forte. And if they do that in practice, he's probably losing.
Yeah. Like if he were drafted by like a bad team and they need him to go be like their number one or two guy in a lineup, he's going to look like garbage.
Yeah,
Thankfully, he's on the Lakers and they have like half a dozen guys that can do these things and he shouldn't need to do these things. He's still going to do them sometimes, but it was very clear last year with how they used him that like this is not Max at his best self. And if you look at how he performed in the areas we know he's good at, he was fine. He was like really strong. And when we look at the lineups where he was allowed to be himself, he was good. And so just give him a real chance. I think he was ready last year and just misused. I think he's even more ready now. And we're starting to see that already with preseason where he looks like he belongs.
I mean there was one play. I think it was in this game. It was the previous game. Like he leaped. Like he went for a rebound. That I'm like, holy like
Yeah,
he
he's an
just
athlete.
he's and that's the thing about our backcourt. It's like they're just too like Austin and D'Lo. They're just too redundant in terms of
Mm-hmm.
like pace, slow. They're like they have different skill sets, but they kind of are in the same speed.
Yeah.
So you kind of need some athleticism there, and
So
Max seems to be the answer.
yeah,
So
how would you feel about this? This is something that I've been thinking about in the off season, and I'd like to see them try. Is try to stagger like you can start if you need to start them for their egos, whatever. I want to see Austin and D'Lo split up a little bit, and I want to see them paired up. Austin with Gabe Vincent and D'Lo with Max, and kind of use those pairings because to me that gives you a good balance of defense with both backcourts, a good balance of offense with both backcourts. You have a strong on-ball player with each. You have a point of attack defender with each, and it'll let D'Lo and Austin relax a little bit on defense so that they can be even more impactful on offense. Whereas if you put D'Lo and Austin together, Austin's needing to carry more of a load on the defensive end of the court, and that might take away from his offense a bit. So I like that. And then from a playmaking standpoint, if I were to rank the four, I'd say it's D'Lo, then Reeves, then Gabe, then Max. And so you pair up number 1 and 4, you pair up number 2 and 3. And to me, like you should be able to run those groupings out without you being like, oh crap, like we forgot playmaking, or oh crap, we forgot point of attack defense. And so I know you still do want to play Austin and D'Lo 30 plus minutes, and so they will have to play together. But when they're not, those are the pairings that I think I want to see. What do you think about that?
I think no, I'm aligned in that reasoning. Like I feel like, and we saw it last year if I'm not mistaken. Like there was a starting lineup that featured D'Lo and and Max Christie, and they were probably our second best net rating lineup if
It
I'm
was
not
good.
mistaken.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was good.
it was really good. So and that's last season's Max. So I can only imagine what he is now. And yeah, I'm for that actually. Like that seems to be a very like that seems to balance. And if you need to start them, cool. My only issue is and this is where the egos kind of go mix because like during the flow of the game you kind of do counters depending on what the opposing team does, and there may be certain defensive coverages where Gabe, because Gabe's size, he may not be like you may lean more on Max than you do on Gabe. But the thing that worries me is kind of like closing. And I know that's matchup dependent, but most times than not last season, if I remember correctly, D'Lo was pulled out for some sort of defense. I don't know if that's going to happen this season, and it's a TBD. But I'm just wondering, like, who would you close? In your opinion, like, is it Austin Max? Like, is Max now to the category of closing or not?
I would say, like, I look at this a couple different ways. Like basketball, like that, your best lineup should be your best lineups, whether it's minute 1, minute 20, minute 48, whatever it is, unless we are talking about you changing your style of play or the opponent changing their style of play. I think when we look at those backcourt combos, Austin plus Max, you downgrade a little bit like from a playmaking standpoint, going from D'Lo to Austin, but you raise the floor quite a bit defensively. And if in those closing minutes, in that clutch time, you want to lean a lot on LeBron and AD offensively, you don't really miss as much of the drop off from D'Lo to Austin from a playmaking standpoint. Along with that, Austin made really big strides last year as the year went along, as a playmaker, as a pick and roll player, as a both as a scorer and a passer. And I've done some tweeting about that to the point where like his full season data isn't as good as D'Lo's, but the form that he was in for big chunks of the year, I'm not talking like last 5 games, last 10 games, like big chunks of the year were on the level they need to be. And so I'm open to that combo where you go Austin and Max, because I think you're good on both ends of the court. And if LeBron and AD are out there, I don't know who the fifth guy might be. It might be Vando. It might be Rui. It really
Yeah,
may
that's
depend.
that's a
It might be
TBD as
Wood.
well. That's a TBD as
Yeah,
well.
very much a TBD. It might be. It all
Yeah,
depends on who you're playing. If you're playing a team with a bunch of off-ball screening and guys running around, maybe you go a little smaller. If
yeah,
it's a team that like you're worried about rebounding or rim protection, maybe you go bigger. In a neutral situation, and they don't have a big scoring wing, maybe you go Rui. If they do have a really strong scoring wing, maybe you go with Vando. It all depends. It also depends on how well AD's shooting the ball. Because again, if AD's sharp shooting from three, throw Vando out there, and I think you're in great shape. But if AD can't space the floor the way we want, Vando does hurt the offense of the group. So it really depends. I would say if you do still expect that point guard position to do a lot of playmaking and ball handling, and let's say LeBron takes a step back this year in that regard, maybe you do lean more on D'Lo. But if I had to guess right
yeah,
now, what the best, last 2 minutes, we're gonna lean on our stars. What's the best backcourt with that supports that? I would say it's Austin plus Max.
yeah. That's I agree on that. And I I'm highly critical of D'Lo, more so that I need to. But I'm gonna end it with this though. Like for everything that D'Lo gets criticized, like he does a lot of good for this team. And during the regular season, you need D'Lo a lot more than what people realize. So just saying that you're closing with Max is not an indictment on D'Lo. Is exactly. It's more you're maximizing what's on the floor, and I feel like
Hmm.
that should be noted because sometimes when a player gets pulled, it's not because like and this is like Twitter talk, but they're trash or something like that. It's more like, hey, you're maximizing what you have on the floor to kind of get the win.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
there could be a night that Austin just is off, so you gotta have to close with somebody else. That's totally possible. Like maybe Rui is off, you have to close with Vando or Christian Wood.
Hmm.
You know, you
It's
never
good to have
know.
options, right?
Yeah, and that's yeah,
It's less like deal is trash and more if we are taking our point guard and putting them off ball more, I would rather have someone who is a better defender. If they're going to need to be on ball a bunch, which seems to be more the default, then yeah, I think D'Lo is probably the better overall impact guy in those scenarios. I think part of it too may depend on what does the front court look like. If we are going very very big and you have LeBron plus Wood plus AD, that's plenty of rim protection and size and rebounding behind D'Lo. That even if he does get beat, we're in pretty good shape. But if you are playing smaller with that front court, and let's say we have like Dalton and LeBron and AD, then I worry more about that point of attack defense and just in general the on ball defense from our backcourt. So it can be
yeah,
very situational. I think if anyone is saying like this is the right answer in every scenario, no matter what, there are things that they're probably not considering that do matter in these situations. And on a game by game basis, it may just depend.
yeah.
So we can say, we can set out, if X, Y, and Z are true, I like this. But anyone that's telling you like this guy's trash, he should never play, I think they're missing something there.
Yeah, no, and that's part of fans. That's part of sort of the game. I've realized it's everybody has a different
Hmm.
perspective,
Oh,
a
for
different
sure.
sort of yeah, but in this case, I do want to say thank you, Tim. I actually want to end it with this question, and it's more of what we do in PGM. I'm trying to go back to some roots here, but you know, and going a little somber tour here. But is there any shows you're watching, like any TV shows, anything that you've, you know, if that, or is it all Mets? Which, if so, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm not a Dodgers fan per se, but I am rooting for the Dodgers, so I apologize.
No, no, you're good. We'll see. They're not dead yet. I think that they're probably gonna lose, and this is a team you can look at their payroll. Like they're paying the most money of any team this year. About half of that money is for guys that are no longer on the team and didn't start the year on the team either. This was supposed to be a rebuilding year. If you look at like what their odds to win the World Series were compared to these other teams that are in the Final Four, they are not in the same category. Like this was not supposed to be a good year. When they
Yeah,
started the year out poor, I was like, yeah, this is what they expected. They told Max Scherzer last year, hey, we're going to rebuild next year, and that led to him requesting a trade to get out of there. So everything at this point is gravy. It's been a magical year. I've been very happy. Some really great moments. They've had an insane number of comebacks, and their season story has very much been a comeback story. So I'm still believing if they can get this next game here today, game six, you got Mania pitching, and game seven, anything can happen. We'll see. The Dodgers didn't look very good just a week ago, and so things can change. But they're
yeah,
probably going to lose. But beyond
yeah.
that, once that does happen, once I am no longer like watching and stressing about playoff baseball like every night, basically, um, Ozark is something my wife and I have started watching recently. We were late to that.
Oh,
I had been watching Rings of Power and enjoyed that. That's over now. I'm trying to think what else. Just sports, football, basketball, baseball, hockey just started. I'm a big sports
you're
guy.
what football team do you? Because this is actually my first year as watching football. Like full disclosure, I'm not a
Hmm.
football fan, but
Okay.
I started to watch it, and I am because where I live, I decided to watch like the Commanders. Like that's my team that I kind of decided, hey, I'm just gonna watch them. I'm gonna watch some other football, but
Nice.
other football teams, but they just been so fun to watch. And
Hmm.
I don't know what's your team. What's your team, Tim?
So I am a Colts fan. It is
Oh, okay.
they have. I'm hoping for them this year that they're not gonna be good, but I'm hoping that they're gonna be like fun and bad rather than not fun and bad.
Mm,
And right now they're missing like 9 of their 22 starters or something like that are injured at
Jesus.
the moment. So it's been more not fun and bad recently. But if and when they get healthy, they're a frisky team that's entertaining. And I also like I got Sunday ticket and I'm in a couple fantasy leagues. So I'll have when I'm watching, I will
Oh,
have
wow.
4 games up on the big TV, and then I have another 2 TVs in my loft. So I will have 6 games up at once, maybe more if I get something up on my laptop. So I am just enjoying every football Sunday, taking it all in, and letting that dictate my mood for the week based on how my teams do, real and fantasy.
Oh, that's dope. I'm not gonna lie. I almost wanted to get the Sunday ticket, but I saw the price and I'm like, this is
It's
my
so
first
expensive.
year.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's expensive, and I'm like, this is my first year just watching football. Let me just enjoy the Commanders
Yeah.
and Jaden Daniels, which he's having a
Hmm.
breakout. Like he's just breaking out. So it's
Yep.
that's been fun to watch. But
If there weren't a student discount I could use, I would not have purchased Sunday ticket because it's a ridiculous amount of money this year.
yeah, it really is. It really is. All right, Tim. I appreciate you, and maybe I'll get you back for midway through the season, and hopefully by then we have some good news, some really good news to share, and not
Hmm.
be depressive. But take care, and everybody, if you do like this, Tim, where can they find you by any chance, just so the people can know.
Yeah, sure. So you can follow me on Twitter at Tim_NBA. I will focus primarily about, I mean, I'm mostly just tweeting about the Lakers these days, and maybe there's some general NBA stuff, maybe just some Boston trash talk here or there. The Mets content will end shortly. So lots of Lakers content. I look at the game from like a coach and X's and O's as well as a data perspective. And so if you're interested in that sort of stuff, check that out. I track every single offensive play the team runs in half court situations and what they did and what alignment it was out of and how it went. And so if you're interested in hearing about like how well is the team doing at running plays or calling plays that attack the defense or just the caliber of plays in general, what's that looking like? Things like that. I have like objective information I can use and I tend to share that out so you can get a good feel for, hey, maybe we lost the game, but the process was really good, or maybe we won the game, but the process was terrible. And that stuff tends to be a little bit more stable and predictive than, it's a make or miss league. And so the results can swing different ways, even if the process is a little different. And I think the process wins out in the end. So that kind of content on Twitter. Tom Zayas and I do a podcast called Lakers Exceptionalism. We do our plan for the season is one weekly pod as well as I think 6 bonus podcasts a month that folks in my Discord will have access to. We do a Q&A pod once every other week along with a bunch of other stuff. And in addition to that, we're going to be putting out weekly videos, 1 to 2 a week on YouTube. And I will be doing film room sessions and playback and stuff like that. So if you're like wanting to learn, what do the Lakers do? How are they running things? Why does this work? Why isn't this working? What are they doing different to make this guy look good or bad? That's the kind of content that I try to put out. So keep an eye out for Lakers Exceptionalism on YouTube, for the podcast as well. And then if you're a big data person or just interested in learning more or interested in trash talking better or winning arguments, go check out Basketball Index. We've got a lot of great stuff available for $5 a
Uh,
month, and we have some new design user interface stuff that we'll be releasing shortly
oh,
that should
really?
make a big difference from a user experience standpoint that I'm very much looking forward to. Things are in like a testing phase right now. We're getting a lot of new cool stuff put together that I think previous and current and future users of B-Ball Index will really enjoy. So check that out. We don't we've got like 600 700 stats, whatever it is, but you don't need to memorize what is a good number, what's a bad number. We'll tell you with letter grades, color coding, percentiles, and so that makes it really easy to say, hey, this guy is good at this thing, bad at that thing, without needing to know what a good, assist to turnover ratio is or things like that.
Oh, that's pretty dope. I'm not gonna lie. I am subscribed to Basketball Index, and it's been helpful. So I do appreciate that tool. And if you have any questions, shoot him a message through Twitter. And honestly, guys, appreciate you. If you like the video, please like, share, and subscribe. And talk to you later. Peace.